So maybe you've heard it your entire life that you were smart. Maybe it was from your parents, maybe it was through school. You were doing well in school, getting all A's, acing all your math exams, acing all your English exams. But that can actually hinder you. And I think it hindered me. So let me get into it. All throughout growing up, my parents told me how smart I was, especially when I did good on exams and things like that. And I got my grades back and I was getting all A's and whatever. Really, school early on came pretty easy to me. And I tied that a lot to my intelligence because it all came naturally and I didn't have to work too hard. This became even more so when I tested into the gifted program at school. If you don't know what that is, it's like if you have a certain intelligence level, they give you an IQ test or something. You get into what's called the gifted program, which they try to tailor extra coursework that I guess makes you try to think a little bit deeper when it comes to the subjects you're studying. Really, it's a massive waste of time, and I would not recommend it to anybody I know. However, this even further reinforced that I was smart, and I tied a lot of my identity to being smart. Now, I want to go on record and say I don't think that I am that smart. I think that I have an above average IQ level when it comes to some things. That doesn't really make a difference to me. Ultimately, this entire video is going to be about why tying your identity back to being smart is actually a terrible thing. And if you listen to this and it sounds like you should probably reconsider the way that you're thinking about being smart and how that actually reflects who you are to other people. So like I said, going back through high school, I ended up towards the top of my class, but like I said, I didn't really take school too seriously. So I think if I would have applied myself, I probably could have done a little bit better in terms of my class rank, but I did pretty well. I wanted to go for nursing, so I'm like, math doesn't matter, I'm just going to pass my classes, get through them, and whatever. So first year of college comes, I take trig, get through it. I've already taken trig in high school, like it was a math requirement, got it done, whatever. But then I realized, you know what, nursing ain't for me. We had like an introduction nursing course, and it just sounded kind of nasty and kind of awful, and kind of like nursing was going to be a huge, large pain in the ass, which my wife's a nurse, so yeah, it is a pain in the ass, and she'll tell you that. So I had to find a different major. And I started looking around. All right, maybe a business degree. I just want to get a degree so I can get a job. Business, kind of boring. Classes are fairly easy. And then all of a sudden, I'm going into my second semester of my second year of college, and I still don't know what the hell I want to do. However, I took a class during this time as I was going through my business degree because I would be required to take calculus. So I took calculus my first semester of my second year of college. And this is where something started to click for me. I actually enjoy mathematics. I enjoyed calculus. But this calculus professor made me fall in love with the subject. It made me fall in love with math. Still, though, I wasn't really being challenged. Because it still came kind of naturally to me. I definitely required a lot of work. This is the first time I had taken calculus. I took pre-calc in high school. But it definitely had a little bit of a challenge. More so than probably any other math class I had taken up to that point. But it still came fairly easy, and I got a really good grade in it. And so I decided that I was going to switch my major at the time to mathematics. I think it was applied mathematics, actually. But I was going to switch my major to applied mathematics and take courses like these all the time. I'm like, all right, well, if I get a degree in math, I can really go into a lot of things. I could go into teaching, I could get an advanced degree and go into something like computer science or software engineering or data analytics or data science or physics, or engineering, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on. I think a math degree is, like, great. However, what I learned after becoming a math major is that I can't just coast by anymore. Sure, I was doing all my homework. I studied before exams. But there's a different degree of busting your ass that is required to get something like a math degree. Personally, like, I'm sure there's somebody in the world that, you know, that's not the case. They can just kind of coast through it. But there's a certain amount of busting your ass that you have to do to get through something like that. And that's what I found out as I got into Calc 2, as I got into linear algebra, as I got into computational statistics after I had switched to a statistics degree, as I got into more of these advanced math courses where I was doing proofs, and I was doing whatever, Calc 3, matrix multiplication, all these other things. It was stuff that I was completely not comfortable with. And it took a lot of effort and work, not only to just like get through the course, but to actually understand what I'm doing so I could build upon it and actually learn the subject. Because it's one thing to pass an exam, it's another thing to understand the subject. And I'm not going to say I understand all of what I did in college, especially since at this point it's like 4 years ago, which is crazy. But at the time, I was spending all that effort to actually learn the subject because I was struggling. There were courses I had to drop because they were just too difficult, and I had to retake them later on when I had a better grasp of like some of the subjects that were required to actually do well in that course. One of them was probability. I had to drop probability the first time because it just made no sense. The teacher was terrible, which didn't help, but to me it made no sense at the time. I really had to lock in the second time, and even busting my ass, I still got like a high mid B, and that was only after like saving myself on the final exam. But I'm just yapping about myself. Like, what does this actually have to do with you? I learned something valuable through this entire process. I'm not going to speak right now to like the value of a college degree. If you want to hear about that, let me know. That's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about just thinking of myself as a smart person was actually a crippling mindset that I had. Because up until that point, I hadn't been challenged. I hadn't been intellectually challenged by anything I was doing. Whether it was school, whether it was work, whether it was just trying to understand more about the world, I had never been challenged like that. And it wasn't just this course, it was many other courses and many other things I was doing at the time. But when you hit that wall, wherever it is, because there's going to be a wall where things don't come easy to you. Maybe it's not math, maybe it's organic chemistry. Maybe it's data structures and algorithms if you're in computer science or something like that. Because you've never struggled intellectually, it's going to hit you like a truck and it's going to make you feel like a failure. But what you don't realize at the time is that that does not make you a failure. That actually means you're learning. You've reached the point where, okay, I have to put forth the effort to learn. I have to put forth the effort to succeed. And you can't just rely on your smarts anymore. You have to rely on your thoroughness. You have to rely on trying hard. You have to rely on putting in effort. And you have to rely on not procrastinating and getting your ass up and having to study and understand things. But this isn't the mindset that you have when this happened. The mindset's, oh, I don't want to try this and fail it, because then maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am. But trying and failing is actually the only way you learn anything. I couldn't tell you the countless amount of time that I have spent with some of my classmates at the time going through homework problems, and they're getting it, and I'm just not getting it. I'm like, all right, let's go back to this problem. I still don't get it. Or vice versa. Like, I'm getting something. My classmate's stuck. We're helping each other learn. And it's not like, oh my God, you're so dumb, you don't understand this. We're like, all right, here's what helped me understand it. Here's the section in the chapter. It's like, oh, okay, that's starting to click. And then once you're like teaching other people like this, you're actually beginning to understand these things, truly understand them. Like at a fundamental level rather than just a high level enough to get an A on an exam or pass a certain exam question. And then this happens as you're in college. At least it happened for me. Maybe you're just that much smarter than me that this is never going to happen to you. And then the other thing is like smart. People who consider themselves smart, they try to overthink everything. They're like, oh, what if this happens? And then they never actually start on the thing. So one thing I was running into in college as well was like, all right, so I'm in this course, I'm starting to like have to really exert myself. What if I need to optimize this to actually learn what I need to learn to pass the class? There's nothing you can do except put in the work, do your homework problems, repeat them over again. When you're studying for an exam, do practice problems over and over and over and over again until you understand what's going on in that course. And I know I'm tying this back to school because that was the mentality I had, was so related to school. But it extends itself into your career, into your workplace as well. When I first started as a data analyst, I'm like, I already know, like, I have a general idea on SQL, I have a general idea on R and Python, like, I can do this. And then you hit that point where you're, like, trying to manipulate data, you're trying to use SQL in a way you've never used before. You're trying to do some advanced queries there. You're trying to do some advanced modeling in R or Python that you haven't dealt with, and you're just at a loss. And again, you can overanalyze and be like, okay, well, if maybe I can do this and that'll be good enough, when really you need to just do this type of modeling and whatever. And then you get hit with something and you're like, you don't want to take on that project because you don't understand it. And the only way to actually understand it is you have to just put in the work to learn a new method, to learn a new querying style, to learn a new programming language. I guess the point of this video is that if this is you, if you feel that your identity is tied to how smart you think you are, which regardless of how smart that is, there's going to be a point where you hit that subject, you hit that goal, you hit that task that you can't just rely on smarts for. And you have to switch that mindset from I'm a smart person to I am someone who doesn't understand this and needs to learn. That switch needs to happen at that point. And there's one of two ways it can go. You can do that and you can learn and you can say, okay, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am. Maybe I don't understand everything. Maybe I need to rethink the way that I'm viewing myself in relation to others when it comes to intelligence. Or, on the flip side, you refuse to do that task. You refuse to try to accomplish that goal because you know that if you try to rely on your raw intellect, you'll probably fail. And then that'll tell you that you've been a fraud this whole time. You're not as smart as you think you are. So trade your identity of you're a smart person for an identity of you're someone who's willing to learn and you're someone who's willing to grow. And this doesn't just come back to intelligence, it comes back to everything. You're not the most kind person that you can be. You're not the most faithful Christian that you can be. You're not the best at anything that you think you are. There's always room for improvement, so the quicker you recognize that, the quicker you can grow in whatever it is in life. So, if you enjoyed that, if that resonated with you, check this video out next because I think you'll like it as well. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.